WisconsinEye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
WisconsinEye coverage of the 2014 elections continues with an interview with Mr. Dennis Fehr of Chippewa Falls. He's the People's Party candidate for governor. Dennis, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you, Steve. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. And a programming note, WisconsinEye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Well, let's start out with the overview questions. Who is Dennis Fehr and what is the People's Party, sir?
Well, my name is Dennis Fehr. I am the People's Party's candidate for governor of Wisconsin 2014. I founded the People's Party back in the early sections of the election here. What we're aiming to do is represent the people of Wisconsin here again, better than the traditional Democrat and Republican Party. In order to do that, I'm a college-educated guy. I own a business in the northern section of the state. We're looking to bring on not your traditional points that the Democrat Party and Republican Party want to represent. So that's the People's Party.
Let's work through some of the issues that are important on your website. You want a simpler tax code. What do you mean? Do you want a flat tax?
Right now on our website we have a flat tax issued as a predisposition for what we would want as a tax system. However, our team is working on better defining exactly what that is. The problem with the tax or a flat tax system is that it misproportionately represents the poor. We don't want to do that. So we're actually developing a better philosophy that combines the progressive tax system and a flat tax system to see where we can go with that here in the state of Wisconsin.
So watch your website for details on your tax plan?
Correct. We have a team working on that right now. When we get in here in November, I'm really looking forward to addressing that with a larger, more educated group of folks who can really take this on and work to combine this system so we have a more simple, easier tax system for everybody.
And another issue on your website, you want to legalize marijuana. I presume that's both for medical purposes and recreational use?
Correct. Yeah, we would go for recreational, medicinal, and industrial. The industrial aspects, of course, would be hemp. I majored in manufacturing engineering at UW Stout here, and for me personally, the hemp aspects in the industrial field, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that's waiting to be taxed. We can do similar to what Colorado did. Provide funding for schools, highways, hospitals, the whole gamut, very cost effectively with an industry that's just waiting to be built.
And some conservatives say marijuana is a gateway drug. How do you answer?
Google will turn up thousands and thousands of results on that, most of which will indicate that it's not, but the Republican Party can pick between the pickings that say there is.
Okay.
Popular belief would say it's not.
Okay. And you want to consider, and that's a term on your website, revising the drinking age. What do you mean? Lowering it?
Yeah, the drinking age has been something here in the state of Wisconsin that has been, not so much now, but when they first initially raised the drinking age, to 21, it was a very hot topic. The reason being is that the federal government, the state of Wisconsin, didn't believe should have the power to say what our drinking age should be. Now I'm a younger guy, I'm 24 years old. A lot of the people that I've grown up with are in very similar situations. The state of Wisconsin will throw us in jail. They will ship us to Iraq, but they won't let us have a beer. It's not representing what the people want. As adults, we deserve the right to choose. We deserve the right to be responsible for our actions, and that means having a beer if we want it. What I would propose to do is simply bring it in front of the people. There's a lot of ways to do that. We don't necessarily need to raise it or lower it to 18. Maybe 19 is a good option, but the people deserve the right to make that educated decision for themselves. The federal government pulling the highway stunts, trying to pull the funding from that really isn't an appropriate action. We deserve the right to choose.
Now, you mentioned your age at 24, and this is your first run for public office.
Yep.
Do you consider yourself the candidate of the millennials?
I would say not officially, but I am a younger candidate. I think I have the education, the experience in both, my professional and business life to do that, and I think I can represent a lot of the things that we as younger generation are looking for.
How are you going to campaign differently than the traditional parties and the older candidates, Dennis?
Well, I tell you, we have a very limited budget, especially in comparison to Walker and Mary Burke's millions and millions of dollars. A lot of things that we are doing is grassroots. We are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. It's a whole new level of campaigning. A lot of it is free advertising, free media. Because our generation isn't so focused on spending more money, we can really reach out to people in a better way.
And then the final item on your website I want to ask you about judicial system reform. What are you specifically aiming at there?
Well, I tell you, judicial system reform is probably one of the most interesting points on our platform. One of the most that I deal with every day. I run a painting company. A lot of the guys that I work with every day, they're in and out of jail all the time. The reason being, a ton of it is mental health issues. They need more counseling. They need more drug rehab, drugs and alcohol, these kinds of things. But the correctional facilities actually failed to correct any fundamental problems. They're throwing them in jail to keep them in there to meet the state's quotas so the funding can be continued for the states or the correctional facilities. Once they're let out, they're in halfway houses. They don't have jobs, they don't have income, they have no way to get that because now they're felons or they don't have a car, or they don't have a license. It's a revolving door of problems. And our current administration, not necessarily Walker, but the Republican and the Democrat parties both fail to recognize these issues and how to fix them. And that's something that I'm very in tune with because I deal with it every day. I deal with it all the time. So we have laid out, especially on our website, a long list of things that we can do. Fundamentally, we need to correct the problem, and that means getting the mental health there. It means getting the structure to get our people working in the jails, working out of the jails, so they have that structure so they can lead fulfilling lives rather than just end up being repeat criminals.
Who should be in prison then? Only those that have been convicted of violent crimes?
You know, there is thousands and thousands of people, and it's hard for me to sit here and say, you know, look, this person and that person should be there or shouldn't be there. Our jails are predominantly filled with people who are there for drug charges, mainly marijuana. It fills our jails. It is very, very expensive for you and I. We're paying a lot in taxes to maintain them policies. They're not effective. We need to get them guys out of there. We need to get them back working. We need to get them so they can pay their own bills, they can buy their own houses, they can pay their own families. I don't want to pay for that. It's too expensive. It's not good for them. It's not good for me. Of course, we do have violent criminals. They need to be in there, but they also need the help. You know, they need to be rehabilitated. They need these things. And the state doesn't want to address it because they don't know how to address it. Now, I guess as a younger candidate, I understand that not addressing the issue isn't a problem that we can deal with in 40 years. We can always build more jails and build more jails and build more jails, but we will never be able to afford it with that mentality.
Let's talk about some specific budget issues. How much money would you, as governor, would you increase the amount state aid going to our K-12 public schools if you were the governor? Recommend an increase, Dennis?
You know, I recently looked over the education budgets here in the state and on a local level. For example, in Chippewa Falls, our Chippewa Falls School District is composed of, I think it's 9 or 10 different schools between all different levels. They have in the bank right now $8 million, as according to their last budget. They want to raise taxes again on folks to provide more things, but they recently built a football stadium. If they need extra money, we're more than willing to provide that as a state. But what we want to ensure is that our schools or our legislation or our representatives aren't just feeding more money to problems that aren't being fixed. As the People's Party, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, look, if the schools need more money, or if the highways need more money, or if our judicial system needs more money, we're willing to provide that. But we're willing to provide that not as a blank check, but rather as an indication that we're short on funds, not because there's not enough money, but because, you know, we need to fix more problems. But if the problems are being addressed, I'm okay with funding more of it. I think the education is an area that we need to increase the funding for, but at the same time, I'm not willing to increase the funding if we're not going to see better results. We can't just write blank checks. Money doesn't fix the problem.
One of the biggest issues in the state budget next year will be the expansion of choice and voucher programs. What's your position on those, using state dollars to go to private schools?
Mm-hmm. You know, in this country, we have always opted for more options, more choices. These are very good things to have. Unfortunately, one thing we do not want to have is forcing people into voucher programs, into alternative schooling that they can't afford. For example, my family. We by no means come from a upper echelon of society. We were on, reduced lunches all the time. We went to school, we packed our own lunches, these kinds of things. I went to Chi High. I think the school's great. They do a great job. Should we have the alternative to go to a different school? Yeah, sure. We need to make sure that curriculum is equal, though. The curriculum needs to be there. We need to test the students, the faculty, the schools to make sure that we are getting better money for our education. It is about the kids, after all. It's not about which schools they're attending. It's about what they're learning and are they learning it adequately.
About a month ago, the governor called for the repeal, the withdrawal from the Common Core standards. Your position on that?
I talked to a lot of teachers in the UW system. One of the main concerns they have is that when Common Core came through, the idea was that, hey, we're going to be able to test all of our students throughout the country on one set of curriculum, one standard. It's a great idea. The problem is that when these came through, they did not take into account what the teachers wanted, what the administrations wanted, how best to teach the students, and what they were being taught. I would have to take a closer look at exactly how that works with the UW system. I know there's a lot of teachers very interested in that. I haven't been doing this for 40 years, so I would definitely have to take a closer look. I think the idea is right. I don't know if the implementation is exactly correct.
Okay. 2 questions on health care. The first one, as you know, Governor Walker and the leaders of the Assembly and Senate, the federal government said if you expand your MA benefits health care, we'll pay for it. But Governor Walker and legislative leaders said no. In your next budget, if you were governor, would you propose that expansion with federal dollars?
I have a real problem with the federal government holding the state of Wisconsin hostage for anything, if it's highway funding or hospitals. I think if we need something, we can pay for it. I'd be more than happy to pay for it if we need more funding for our hospitals. Medicaid, Medicare, these are things I'm concerned about because these are the programs that aren't going to be there for me. And that's what we know if we continue the way we're going. Now, the federal government has a serious spending problem. They can't afford the things that they're buying now, and that is the reason that our dollar isn't worth what it should be. They are printing more money. This quantitative easing doesn't work, and we need to cut them off from that. We cannot continue to accept funds that we know they don't have and will never have. We need to fix the problem at its core. The mental health issues in our state is a problem. We can address them, but we can address them as a state. We don't need the federal government's funding.
And then finally, the American Hospital Association said Wisconsin has the second lowest Medicaid reimbursement rates in the nation. Have you studied that? Do you think those reimbursement rates should be increased?
Again, with that, I haven't been doing this forever. There's a ton of issues in the state. I've been traveling around. I've been catching up as fast as I can. The Medicaid reimbursement rates, one thing I would really like to know more about is, first off, why they're the lowest. I'm sure there is a reason. Second off, should it be addressed? I'm sure we should raise it if we can, but again, I'm sure there's a reason that it is the way it is. As governor, I would really want to look more into that and see the whys behind things. I think that is very, very important. Whether or not we need to raise it or not, again, I think we can if we need to. The money is there as long as we're not writing blank checks for no results.
Transportation funding. The Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance said, if we keep spending for transportation at the 2013 levels over the next 10 years, we're $2 billion with a B dollars short. Do you think there is a deficit? If there is a deficit, how would you fix it as governor?
The budgets in our state are always fun to look at. I look at them quite frequently. The transportation itself, again, we need to focus on why are we short on budgets. Are we really building that many new roads? Are we paving new roads? I'll tell you what, 10 years ago, back when I was in, I forget which school it was now, but we had a new highway, a new freeway, Highway 29, put behind our house. Now, this year, we've seen a record amount of buckling in this brand new freeway. That freeway costs millions of dollars a mile to put in, and it doesn't even last 10 years. We have a serious issue with spending money inappropriately. If the highway isn't going to last long enough, we need to look for better, more appropriate sources of transportation. Maybe it's rail, maybe it's something else, or maybe we need to invest in a better form of road. For example, there's a lot of research being done on these solar roads. I think that would be an excellent thing to look into for the state of Wisconsin. You'd be able to provide a road that doesn't buckle, doesn't need nearly as much maintenance. Maybe we wouldn't have these budget shortfalls if our roads were better designed in the first place.
Would you consider raising either the gas tax or the $75 that you and I pay when we register our vehicles?
I would consider raising those things. The problem with that is the money isn't being allocated appropriately in the first place. And like I said, that's a huge problem. We can raise gas tax and raise gas tax and raise gas tax, but if the money isn't being spent on the roads, what's the point? What's the point? We need to address those issues first. Those are the problems that are going to fix the issues that we need them to fix. Eventually, we are going to be converting out of gas-powered vehicles. The technology is coming a very long ways. So we can't sit here and rely on the gas tax to solve our issues. We need to actually put the money where it needs to be and spend it appropriately.
There have been there's been three tax cuts approved in the last 18 months. If that causes a deficit in the next 2 years, and we're talking out 2015, 2017, so projected deficit by mid-2017, if there's a deficit, how would you as governor recommend fixing it?
Well, like I said, once you've simplified the tax code and you've incentivized businesses to come here, once you have legalized marijuana and started bringing in industrialized hemp, you've opened up billions and billions of dollars in tax revenue. The government is essentially making money off the taxes. That's what they do. In order to broaden the base of tax revenue, you simply need to bring in more businesses. High industry, like technological companies, for example, Boeing, SpaceX, Solar City. These are all companies that are willing to come to the state of Wisconsin and build high-tech, high-paying jobs. And the state of Wisconsin they'll make tax money off of that. We just have to get them here. We have to incentivize them.
Okay. Two questions on the environment. The first one, the bill that was passed that let Giebig Taconite apply for a permit to develop the iron ore mine in Ashland and Iron counties. Would you, as governor, recommend any changes to it?
Changes. I looked through that and the damage that would be done to the upper section of the environment in our state with these taconite mines and iron mines. In this particular circumstance, I think the negative externalities due to the economic impact is far greater than the tax advantage or tax income that the state of Wisconsin is going to see. I do not think that ratio is worth it. I would not support building that mine. Most of the people in the northern section of the state would say the same exact thing. If they would be able to appropriately mine the ore, do these things without damaging the environment to such an extent, I would be okay with that. It is important to have a diverse economy, but at the same time, we do need to be looking 40, 50 years down the line. I'm still going to be here, and I do not want our state to be ruined because of poor decision making now.
Frac sand mining is a huge issue in western Wisconsin, where you come from. Do we need more state rules or more local rules?
Local government knows best 9 times out of 10. The silica standards that our state does not have is a big issue. I would like to work with a lot of the Indian nations in the area. They are devoting a lot of money and time and their own DNRs. I would like to join the DNR's forces and really make sure that we are appropriately spending our money and time on things that matter. And these things that matter would be making sure that the silica content is safe, making sure the waterways are safe, making sure our forests, rivers, these things are clean and healthy for the future. I don't think there's a problem with sand mining. We just need to make sure that it's being done correctly, that it's being done safe, and that the rules and regulations are being followed.
And local governments know best on the issue of frac sand mining?
Typically, they're most affected by the frac sands in their area. Do they always have all the research that they need? No. The state and local communities should be working together to make sure that these things are safe. But typically, like I said, Chippewa County is a long ways from Madison, and for anybody in Madison to really understand what we're going through in Chippewa is a whole other ballgame. Do we have a sand mine there? Do we have a processing plant? Yeah, we do, and it employs a lot of people. But what are the costs of cancer in the future? What are the costs of these things? We need to know what we're doing. We need to know what we're doing now before we do it. We can't simply say, hey, look, we'll worry about the negative effects in the future. We know how to test for this stuff. We know if it's safe or not. We just need to apply ourselves and actually put the time forth.
In the primary for Attorney General, the issue of drunken driving arose. Well, it always does in the Capitol. The issue, of course, well, a central issue, one of the many issues, should first offense drunken driving be a crime?
Absolutely not. I work with a lot of people that don't have their driver's license in the first place because of things exactly like that. They get a ticket, they lose their driver's license. Now, how are they supposed to get to work? I'm a good guy, so we pick everybody up. We make sure they get to work. These are good things to do, but not every company does that. So effectively what happens is that they lose their driver's license. They can't get to work, so they can't get a job. They can't pay their bills because they don't have a job, and they can't get a job because they don't have their license. Making felons out of everybody in the state is probably not the best way to go. The Tavern League has a Safe Ride program, great program. Rather than trying to throw people in jail, maybe we should invest in getting them home safely, allowing them to make the responsible decisions that they need to make. There's no excuse for drunken driving, but at the same time, throwing them in jail doesn't fix that problem. Because our correctional facilities, if they worked appropriately, we would never have a second DWI in our state.
The next governor will be drawn into this issue, even though it involves the city of Milwaukee. Milwaukee Bucks need a new arena to stay in that city. The new arena cost estimates from $400 to $500 million. Should state government pay any part of that cost to us?
Here's my thoughts on sports. I'm not a huge sports watcher. I do watch it from time to time. The stadium in Milwaukee. Milwaukee makes up 17% of our state, roughly, in population density, which is equivalent to almost the northern third of our state, from Chippewa to Green Bay and up. So if Milwaukee would like a new stadium, I think there's more than enough people in Milwaukee to decide that and raise their taxes appropriately. Is it going to bring in revenue? Yeah, for the whole state, I don't know. We don't even see that on TV up where I come from. I mean, we barely get the Packers in when the Vikings are playing at the same time. So if we want to talk about public sports like football, yeah, you know, sure, everybody enjoys that. It's all around the state. The Bucks is not the same way.
So, translation, no state aid in your budget as governor for the Bucks arena.
Okay. No, I don't think they need it.
You just alluded to a very fascinating issue. You live in northern Wisconsin.
Yep.
How do you feel northern Wisconsin has generally been treated by the political power centers of Madison and Milwaukee?
Well, we're highly misrepresented. You know, for me, it's a 3-hour drive just to come down here and talk with you guys. I enjoy it, but at the same time, like I said, Madison, Milwaukee, you guys don't really know what's going on up there. We don't have high-speed internet. We don't have, you know, a lot of the nice things that you guys enjoy down here. It's a dead zone, you know, all the way down to Madison. I don't get cell reception or anything. So, you know, addressing these issues first across the state is a much larger concern of mine than if we have a stadium in Milwaukee.
I understand.
You know?
As a young man, let me ask you about UW system tuition. Governor Walker has proposed, we now have had a 2-year freeze. He said he would propose in his next budget another 2-year freeze. Would you think that's a good idea?
You know, I myself have $20,000 or $30,000 in student loan debt. It's a lot of money. You know, I majored in manufacturing, engineering, and business management, like I said. But at the same time, why is it that schools are so expensive to go to in the first place? You know, there's no reason that our colleges is $10,000, $20,000 a semester for some of them. There's no reason for that. Do I think we need a tuition freeze? Yeah. Do I think we need to understand more thoroughly where this money is going that we're spending on? Of course I do. Because I've taken a lot of classes at UW Stout, CVTC, that, you know, they really weren't worth $1,000 a class to go to. You know, they're online classes, the teachers are hardly there. We're teaching a lot of ourselves the material anyways. We need to really address why it is so expensive in the first place. Not so much whether or not they need more money. Why?
On that issue, Democratic Senator Dave Hansen of Green Bay has proposed a bill that would let that would give tax breaks to those with student debt, such as you. Do you support those? Because there's a cost.
There is a cost. With our tax system, there's not going to be any tax breaks for that kind of thing. I went to school. I'm more than happy to pay for my schooling. I don't need anybody else to pay for it. I don't want anybody else to pay for it. I will pay for it. But what I do need is, I studied manufacturing engineering. I need a manufacturing job, and I need a high-paying manufacturing job. We can give money that we don't have to people for going to school, people like me, or we can fix the problem, and we can bring manufacturing jobs in. We can bring more jobs in. That is a solution. Giving people money is not a solution. Doesn't fix problems.
Finally, you've heard calls both in Washington and Madison to raise the minimum wage. Do you have a position on that?
Well, like I said earlier, the minimum wage to begin with is ineffective right now. Why? Because we don't have enough buying power. Essentially, the reason that the currency doesn't have enough buying power right now is the federal government is printing money. They call this quantitative easing in economics. What that does is it artificially deflates the currency. That is illegal, according to the rest of the world. When China does it, they get in a lot of trouble. But nobody really regulates the United States as far as that goes. In order to fix that, what we need to do is we need to be able to tell the federal government that it is unacceptable to print money and artificially deflate our currency, because it's hurting people in Chippewa and Madison and Milwaukee. And raising the minimum wage isn't going to fix that. It is a very temporary Band-Aid, because as soon as the minimum wage is raised to $10 or $15 or $30 an hour, instantaneously the cost of goods goes up the exact same way. It isn't going to fix any problems, and I'm not going to support a bill that doesn't fix any problems. I'm not going to lead our state in a direction that doesn't fix problems, because I'm the one that's going to pay that cost in 4 years, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And
then last question. Talk to the voters out there and tell them why they shouldn't vote for Democrat Murray Burke, Republican Scott Walker, and they should pull the Dennis Fehr lever.
I think that the voters here in the state of Wisconsin have spent a long time debating whether or not they want to vote Republican or Democrat. At the end of the day, we haven't seen any real results in a very, very long time. I mean, we've been talking about tax reform since Reagan. We haven't landed on the moon since before I was born. Where did the incentive go to do better in this country? Where did that incentive go? The Republicans aren't doing it. The Democrats aren't doing it. So I founded the People's Party so we can do it. If you vote for me, we will do that.
Fascinating. Dennis Fehr of Chippewa Falls is the People's Party candidate for governor. The election is November 4th. Dennis, thanks for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you.